So why? Because we don't have the priority, and we don't have the priority because we don't have the national conversation. We don't have the national conversation because we don't have the science. And all we have is people coming in and just... I was very impressed by the presentation early yesterday morning, and the disconnect between that presentation and what I know is the case about illicit trades. So anything goes. Anyone can come and give you a talk about this issue. And it sounds great. Why? Because we don't have scientific standards that know what is real and what is just shooting the breeze.
Two more. You create the need for a lot of questions to be asked. And probably a lot of them aren't being asked because otherwise that's the beginning to start. Where do you see the tipping point for a U.S., the UK? You mentioned the city of London, you mentioned Manhattan. Too late, it's too late. Give up, join the fray, make some money. Because that seems to be the inevitable end game. Or is it?
So why do you think there is such a tension? I have been here living in this city close to policy making circles now for 20 years. I have never seen such attention to Mexico as I see now. When the only other episode was the negotiations about the U.S. Free trade NAFTA, the North American free trade. So there was a lot of attention with Mexico, and then there was the financial crisis, another bout of attention, but then it disappeared. Now, about once a month, you have a cabinet member in the United States going to Mexico. You have millions of dollars in the Merida plan, you have a lot of attention. Why do you think is that? Well, because Americans are beginning to find bodies in their streets associated with the Mexican cartels. So things will have to happen. I'm not prescribing that violence in the streets of the United States cities is the way to go. I am just saying that nothing will happen unless you have political will, and political will always lags the collective understanding of things and pressure. The case of drugs is very revealing, and it's a fascinating conversation. I am a member of a commission of former presidents of Latin America called it, and I encourage you to read the report, is Drugs and Democracy on Latin America. It's headed by former president of Brazil, Fernando Enrique Cardoso, Cesar Gaviria from Colombia, and Ernesto Cedillo from Mexico, and there are 15 others of us. And we spent about 2 years looking at everything related to this, and came out in favor of legalizing marijuana and taking a hard look at the possibility of legalizing cocaine. But mostly, and the most important conclusion is to move away from the dichotomy between prohibition and legalization. Whenever you talk about drugs, the immediate conversation is, well, so you're for legalizing it? Because the alternative is, prohibition. So is this a complete prohibition or complete legalization? And it just so happens that there is a world of options in the middle that are never explored. Because the moment that you say that, you're immediately accused of being soft on crime, or too naive, or something. For a politician, it's absolutely radioactive not to be in favor of prohibition. 76% of Americans think that the war on drugs has failed and will continue to fail. However, when you ask them, do you think it has to be changed? No. Americans, the paradigm of pragmatism, of can-do, of whatever works. Something that doesn't work, they accept it's not working, but they do not feel the need to change it. That needs a change in the conversation. and explaining that the options are not prohibition or legalization of everything, every drug for everyone all the time. There are intermediates. Every option will have a cost. There are no cost-free. This is government, and you know that very often government policy is choosing between the horrible and the catastrophic. And it's not choosing between paradise, hell, and heaven. It's choosing between two bad things and which one is the least bad. So that is the kind of conversation that needs to be had, and it's not happening. And we have created a situation where for any politician is politically suicidal to try to advance the debate to a more rational conversation. So the conversations very often will have to start not in the corridors of power, but at dinner tables in American homes.
That's the last question.
It's going to be an easy question. It piggybacks on a lot of the topics that we've already discussed. But what comes to my forethought is terrorism, 9/11, Big Bang. Takes all of our attention, lots of our resources, and lots of people here, I think, the first thing they think about when they think illicit networks is terrorist networks. Do you think that coming into thinking about illicit networks, our thoughts are going to be so muddy because we're trying to apply what we understand about terrorist networks to illicit trade?
That's a great question. First, the illicit networks are enabler, facilitators, and force multipliers of terrorism. Let's start with that. Second, of course, terrorism is a threat, is a top priority, and attention needs to be given to that. Third, unfortunately, the attention, the complete attention to terrorism has distracted from this other threat. Fourth, some people that are in the field of alerting to the fact that illicit networks are a problem that is worth paying attention use the terrorist threat as a motivator, and I disagree with that. There is very, very weak evidence that there are connections between illicit traders and terrorists. I always say, and in the book, and I think somebody mentioned it, the terrorists are in it for God, the illicit traders are in it for greed and money. And so if you're a terrorist, if you are an illicit trader, if you are the linchpin of a large, multinational, highly successful, highly lucrative business enterprise, the last thing you want is to be associated with a group that you know all security agencies in the world are tracking. So, you know, you try to keep, you know, that's your, you want to do terrorism, you do it, but leave me alone. I don't want to be on the radar screen of those that are looking for terrorists and therefore getting me. However, there are links, we have seen links, but it's not a central thing.
Well, on behalf of NDU, Global Futures Forum, and DIA, thank you for closing this out for us today. And the 50th anniversary day.
Thank you very much.
Okay, just a few things before we let you off the hook here and get out the door and hit the traffic there. I just want to thank everybody for attending. You exceeded our expectations with your participation and your questions, and all those who served on the panels and all that. I really appreciate that. I think it comes at a good time. There is a lot of discussion in the National Capital Region as well as around the world on how best to deal with illicit networks. If you look at what we heard today, sometimes it's kind of hard to go home and think, you know, oh my gosh, what's the sense of living? You know, it's so dark and gloomy, all the things we hear, especially after Dr. Phil Williams. You know, it's only going to get worse, just wait, and duck and cover. But you know, you had to think that you can easily become fatigued, and I think most of us can on a regular basis. But the related story that my daughter told me is about the elderly gentleman went down to the beach, and there was a young lady down there, and there's nothing but starfish all up and down the beach, and she was picking them up and throwing them into the water. So they looked up at her, you know, you can't possibly save all these starfish. So she picked up another one, threw it out in the water, said, I made a difference to that one. So when you go home, most of us are involved in this on a regular basis. You all make a difference. And if you work it together, I think collectively we'll put a dent in it. Maybe not defeated, but we'll do something good. On that note, we have a few admin items. Michael, did you want to say anything more? Or?
I will only say this. Let me once again thank the staff of DIA, Bridget Yackley, Connie Piniella, Justin Cutting. I want to thank again the staff of CCO, David Becker, Joshua Jones, and specifically I want to thank the main conference organizers, Jackie Carpenter and Jessica Larson. And I would simply say that on behalf of the CCO, DIA, and Global Futures Forum, I thank you all for participating in this. And I'd like you to think about, what do you do next? This is really your conference, not ours. We're just the hosts. So this is a problem that infects all of our lives. What can you do about it? What will you do about it? One thing that I'm going to do about it is I'm going to try to squeeze out of this a publication in the future, a book. That's one of the takeaways that a conference can have to have some sustainability. And I'd like to ask any one of you who's interested in contributing to this to share your thoughts on what should be the content of that book. What would we try to cover, and volunteer to write some of it for us so that we can disseminate this message, push it out, and try to build on this community, turn a population of interest into a real community of interest. Those are my only parting thoughts.
Just want to say GFS and DIA could not have done that, Michael. Could not have done that with a perfect host. So on behalf of DIA, a nice challenge point for you. And I appreciate
thank you very much.
And Jackie, for all your help. Appreciate it. Thank you. And Jessica, again, she made it very easy for me to carry this out. This was maybe been my vision, but Jessica was the executor of that. So she, along with Jackie and Mike, deserve a big round of applause.